Okay, so we're actually on spring break now. This is March. We're not quite sure when this is going to come out. We want to record this ahead of time in case for some reason we can't make an episode, or we know we're going to be on holiday at some time in the summer. So, not sure when this is going to come out exactly. We're not quite sure what to call this episode either. We started doing our Nova Pro reviews, and we started with the letter A because it was year one. And at that time, we didn't even think about going back and reviewing the previous ones, but it's something that we talked about. And also, we're right in the middle of, I think it's been 3 weeks since the last Nova Pro event, and it's at least another 3 weeks until the next Nova Pro, so we're kind of missing it a little bit. So we went back to Powerbomb TV, and we actually watched the very first one. So this is our review of the Nova Project, which was September 25th from the Jewish Community Center of Northern Virginia in Fairfax. And I guess we're calling this episode Z1 then, Mason.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you're calling it. I'm calling it episode Z1, but anyway, I don't think there's much to do about this one. All right, now the thing to know about this one is there were several last-minute changes to the card I read online. There was a lot of issues relating to licensing. I guess wrestling has a lot of rules that you've got to follow. And when the show took place, there was only one of the original advertised matches taking place. So if you actually saw the card for this, what we're going to review right now doesn't look anything close to that at all. Is there anything you want to talk about in general before we start, Mason, or do you just want to go straight into match one?
Well, first of all, do you know what the match was supposed to be that actually
The
happened?
original one? It didn't say.
Oh.
I know some that it wasn't, and once we get to those, we can talk about who was supposed to face each other. But no, it sounds like that the guys had a lot of issues to deal with on that day, and some people who thought they were fighting, who actually even travelled to the matches, turned up and then weren't allowed to fight or had to fight somebody else.
Yeah.
So, it must have been a real pain to organise. But yeah, headaches for a very first one. I'm sure it was a lot to set up to begin with anyway, without having to deal with all those issues that went on at the same time.
And the bad thing is there's no storylines.
But that's true as well, yeah. There's no backstory at all. You don't know any of the characters.
Yeah.
I guess it was sort of like the tryout show that we went to see recently. Everybody's just got to show their stuff, and I guess they're fighting for sort of a position for the next event. And as it happens, it looks like there's actually 24 events as we're recording right now. So obviously it did manage to go on. But yeah, all right. Shall we start with the first match then?
Yeah.
I have it listed as, and some of these are very difficult to find. I got it as Brandon Money Green, Shorty Smalls, and Dominic D, who were called the Goodfellas, which I picked up in the middle of the match. And this was against Pork Chop Jackson and the Tiger Express, who were a couple of luchadors. Any notes that you want to talk about to begin with for this match?
There was no gated community, and you can tell who Pork Chop Jackson is. It's like, yeah.
You could definitely tell which one was Pork. When the first team came out and introduced them, it's like, well, you don't know which one's which. And I have Dominic D written down, but later on, there was somebody introduced as Deuce Donatelli. So I don't know if that's because his initials are DD and Deuces means two. So I don't even know which one was which even then.
And if you notice that now in Nova Pros they have tape for the fans and they had rails. So
you're right, and that was one big difference. Just that very first, the first match, just as they walked in, you notice some really big differences as we've been to the last few events now, and that's certainly one of them. And the other one was as they walked in, they didn't come down. I wouldn't say it's like a ramp, but they didn't come through the entrance that we're used to in the middle of the arena. They just walked through the door like we do when you check in, when the ticket customers, as you walk in through the door. They just walk through that door. So if people had been still coming in, you'd have been walking in with the wrestlers. I don't know quite if they had somebody keeping people away at that point, but yeah, that was certainly an interesting difference.
wow.
And I don't think when we said, hey, should we do review episode 1, we even thought about some of the differences that happened. But looking back, it's kind of a good thing that I think most of our comments today are probably going to be differences between episode 1 and episode 24, rather in some cases, some of the matches themselves. But yeah, anything else you got from this match?
Well, mostly, I think, it was a great match, and there was a lot of cheating by Brandon Money Green, Shorty Smalls, and Dominic D, but mostly I was just seeing the differences, how long Nova Pro has come,
Let me talk about one more thing as they walked in. I wrote down a few things about what they looked like. So the first team we talked about, Money Green, Shorty Smalls, and Dominic D, they came in with chains around their neck. One of them had a feather boa, a fedora hat, and they asked the crowd, stand up and cheer, which I don't think people were cheering for them. I think it was obvious they were heels straight away. And the Pork Chop team, they came into the Uptown Funk song. And that's actually how they started. They started dancing on the edge of the ring, and yeah, we've seen other people do that dancing thing. Sugar D, I know, is a big person for that as well,
Yeah.
and I think it definitely gets the crowd hyped up straight away, which is good. I think you need that for that first match. You want that energy level. No one really knows what to expect. Get them hyped up straight away.
Yeah, Faye Jackson does that too.
And the first team said they need to stop doing that dancing stuff, which of course they didn't pay any attention to, and they carried on. Now, when I started looking at these ones, because I don't know any of these characters at all, I think I might have heard of Brandon Green. That one sounded half familiar. The other ones I'm not familiar with at all. When I started looking these up on the internet, my first response I got from Shorty Smalls. Did you know that's actually a restaurant?
Oh.
No, I didn't know that either. Apparently a very old restaurant. It goes back to 1888. His daddy was a mining town cook who apparently made the worst pancakes ever. But when he took over the family business, he started doing family restaurants, Southern-style cooking. And he mentions that they do barbecue as well. So I didn't manage to find out much about Shorty Smalls, except there's a restaurant. I'm going to assume it's not the same person at all. Also, at the start of the match, I talked about when they walked in, they had their chains, and that was their first heel moment. They got the chains, and they started choking them before the match had even started. Anything else you got for this one?
No.
I got it. The crowd starts to get into it. They start clapping for the first time. It's fairly quiet to begin with, because there's no sort of... I don't think people know what to do necessarily, and they don't know who they are, like you said. It turns into a 3-on-1 with Pork Chop and one of the Tigers outside. Now, towards the end of the match then, we like the finish for this one, though. So the heels won. Money Green climbed up to the top of the ropes, and then got some dollar bills, I'm assuming they're fake dollar bills, threw it up to the air, made it rain, and then jumped down, lands with his elbow from the ropes, and then Deuce Donatelli pins for the win.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the match, they all attacked Pork Chop Jackson, and then they left.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can say I didn't have much for that one as well. But yeah, I did notice again, same thing. They exit as well through that same entrance, which is definitely one of the big differences as well. All right, shall we move on to match 2 then?
Yeah.
So match 2, do you have the names, or do you want to?
If I pronounce it right, I think I do. Prakash Sabar versus Chad Sterling.
And I would agree. I thought that was the name. I got Prakash Sabar, and that was the only thing I can tell for sure.
Prakash Sabar, he comes out with Triple H's music. He mocks Triple H with his Degeneration X thing.
Yeah, he was doing those same gestures. He was definitely, you could see that he was paying homage to that. The other thing we noticed for this one was we recognised the ref as well. Now, I tried to look up his name. I can't find his name anywhere. There's 3 refs listed, and I looked at each of their pictures, and it didn't look like the guy at all. You could tell he hadn't changed much. This is only 3 years ago, so there's not going to be massive changes. In fact, I think it's less than 3 years. I think this is September 2015, and yeah, we're at March 2018 as we're recording this right now. But yeah, that one, the first match, we didn't recognise the ref at all.
No.
So that was another difference that we sort of missed. Chet Sterling, we will say, he was a bigger name at this point because he was the CWF Mid-Atlantic Television Champion. He walked in with a white tie, a jacket, and he had the word different on his pants. But yeah, he had all sorts of different things going on there. Now, I actually looked him up a little bit. I did recognise that name. I've seen a few other Nova Pro events, and I did recognise him from that. Actually still fights for the Mid-Atlantic. And I looked for his first few posts, and actually, yeah, he has fought there. And actually, fairly recently, he featured, and I don't know if you know this person, Shane Helms.
No.
I recognise the name, and I think he's gone back a long time. I think he goes back to WWE.
Oh.
He was known as the Hurricane. He has 411,000 followers on Twitter. So, yeah, Chet Sterling and CWF obviously has quite a big pull as well. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Anything for this match?
I noticed that there was no Brian. He wasn't announcing, but I saw him in the back. I saw him with the sound crew.
Yeah, and we were playing that game. It was like, is that Brian? Because it was focused obviously on the wrestlers, but you could see people in the back, and it definitely looked like Brian. We did reach out on Twitter, and Brian was there, but he wasn't the ring announcer. And I don't think there was an obvious ring announcer there. You could hear somebody announcing them, but you couldn't see that person. They certainly weren't stood in front of the camera. The only time we saw that person was actually for the very last match.
Yes.
But yeah. Well, let me talk a little bit about this match then. So, I just got a few little things on here. So, there was a second rope bulldog on Chet. He kicks out. Also, Prakash, I also looked from. Apparently, I couldn't find very much out about him at all. He's only made 6 posts in the last 3 months on Twitter. And yeah, 2 of those were about Ruby Riott.
Oh,
He's obviously a big Ruby Riott fan. Also, I got on here, avoids the X Factor. That was the big right hand from Chet. And, avoids the X Factor, but then there's a big right hand from Chet. And that was the 1, 2, 3. And that was the end of the match. I didn't have much for that one at all.
I also had that Prakash Sabar. It was a title match for Chet Sterling's
It was.
Title.
Yeah.
And Prakash was having multiple temper tantrums during the match, like Alexa Bliss.
And Logan, who we'll talk about later
Yes.
as well. I did have this, following on from this, so Chet Sterling would later go on to face Logan in Nova Pro's first ever ladders match in July 16th at American Slang in 2017. So perhaps we'll catch up on that one at some point and we can talk about that one. Leading on from this one, Prakash Sabar would go on to tag with Brandon Green from match 1, and also Rayo at Stay Vicious, which was the next one, in a 3-on-3 match. Stay Vicious, the next one, wasn't actually until January 31st, 2016. Now, we just said the first one was September 25th, 2015, so there was actually a 4-month gap between the first event and actually the second event, so there was a long time in between those ones. Now, I was waiting to see if there was any reaction, and I didn't get a reaction for you, so I'm going to read the names again who just teamed up. Prakash Sabar, who we just talked about, goes on to tag with Brandon Green, who we just talked about, and also teamed with Rayo.
Oh, I remember Rayo.
Okay, so how do you know Rayo?
Because we met him in MCW.
We did, and can you remember what specifically happened on MCW on that particular day? It was a kind of a special day, right?
Well, it was my 10th birthday, and you were trying to find a wrestling event on my birthday, and you found MCW.
I found MCW, yeah, that's Maryland Championship Wrestling. It wasn't too far away. And we got 2 autographs on that day, I think.
Yeah.
And Rayo happened to be one of them. We saw him in one of the early matches, and I was really impressed with him. I thought he was really good. And Greg Excellent was the other one you got. And we found out later, or I found out later when I was looking, Greg Excellent was on Impact Wrestling at one point, or perhaps TNA as it was called then. So yeah, Rayo I certainly recognised from that. So that was kind of cool that we went to another event, and it brought that name back to me. I think if we hadn't gone to that, I wouldn't have meant anything to me, I don't think at all. Alright, so the first 2 matches were, I would say, probably not traditional Nova Pro matches as how we would view them right now, but I don't think we could get any more Nova Pro than match 3. Do you want to talk about match 3?
Match 3 was Bo Crockett versus Bobby Shields.
Mm-hmm.
And Bo Crockett, his music was Radioactive, which we know. And
By Imagine Dragons.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Bobby Shields was a face.
He was, yeah. And actually, having just talked about MCW for a second, when we went up there, we actually missed Bobby Shields because it was the tag team Robbie and Bobby. And it was just Robbie on that day, and it was kind of like, Robbie! And we saw a poster that had them on together. I didn't even notice that was Bobby Shields.
No.
I didn't notice that until a couple of weeks ago. And I'd heard somebody mention that he was a face in other places. But yeah, that was interesting that he was a face. I also got on... Bo Crockett's also known as the Bo Show as well. And as soon as he walked in, fans started booing, so they recognised him as the heel straight away. And he's there going, show me some respect. Like, yeah, I'm sure that's going to work. Now, Bo's not actually on Twitter.
He's not?
No. Oh, well, if he is, I couldn't find him. When he was tagged in a Nova Pro post, well, he wasn't even tagged. It just listed him as Bo Crockett. Normally it's like @ and then whatever the person's name is. So I couldn't find out much about him. I did find Bobby Shields was on Twitter. His post from when we actually looked on, the first post he had is, apparently donuts are better for you than muffins. It's on the internet. It must be true. So he wasn't talking about wrestling at all, just sort of everyday stuff. Now, one thing I did notice straight away about this match, and probably we're not going to talk about too much about it, the standard was a lot higher.
Yes.
So I don't know how long these guys have been wrestling for, but you could tell that they're far more established than certainly what the other guys were, even though that other guy was a CWF champion.
Yes.
I thought the standard was a lot better. Anything specific about this match?
At the end, I found out that, well, not found out, I saw that the ref did a really fast count.
You're right, and I had not picked up on that at all, but as soon as you mentioned it, we started watching it a bit more, and you're right, it was like a 1, 2, 3, and it was, well, normally it's like a 1, and they got chance after that 2 to actually kick out. Dramatic, but you're right, it was a very fast count, because Sage Phillips lost the championship because of that fast count against Logan fairly recently, because they said, no, you counted too quick. That was nowhere near as quick as what this guy was counting. So that was a very good observation.
I wonder if they were trying to rush it, because, like, they were behind schedule.
They could have been, and it could have been like that tryout show as well. They didn't want it to go on too long. They were trying to keep the matches to about 10 minutes as far as I could tell. The longest match was only 12 minutes.
Uh-huh.
So there was nothing that went on too long. So it might have been. And I didn't keep track of the time for individual matches, but I just noticed at the end. So I got Bo was dominant at the start. There was a lot of strength moves, that's for sure. You could see they were testing each other out. Suplex, uncomfortable submission types of moves, spine busters, attempted superplexes, which is always exciting. I always like to see those ones. Series of headbutts, top rope drop kick, stomp foot like an HBK, and then he went for like the super kick, a running bulldog, and all these things didn't even lead to a 3 count. These were just things on the build up to this. Finally, at the end, Bobby rolled up Bo for a near 3 count, and then he looked like he was going for the backslide, but actually he just dropped him. It was kind of a weird move. Pinned him, and great response from the crowd, and quite rightly, all those things I just mentioned. Think how much we just talked about the first 2 matches. Not very much at all.
Nope.
All right, unless you've got anything else, we'll move on to match 4.
Nope, I'm ready.
All right, do you want to start match 4?
It was Chase Owens versus Eric Royal.
Mm-hmm.
And Chase Owens' music was radioactive, just like Bo Crockett.
And we noticed, because I said to begin with, I was like, why do they can't both have that one? Now, I actually checked. Chase Owens' music is radioactive. So, the question is then, is Bo Crockett's music really radioactive as well? Or do you think Brian messed up? We don't know that it was Brian.
I think Brian messed up because Bo Crockett, now his music is not radioactive.
It's not.
I don't know if he changed it. We have to watch the next one to see if it's radioactive.
And we'll have to pay attention to that. But we know that because that's one of our, I won't say, it's one of our favourite songs. We have that on our iPod quite frequently. But yeah, that was certainly, and there was certainly a lot of boos for him when he came out as well. And did you mention his opponent?
It was, Chase Owens versus Eric Royal.
What did you notice about Eric Royal?
He looked a lot slimmer.
He looked ripped. I got the word ripped written down. He was strong, and he looked a lot more slender. But he's still strong. Don't get me wrong on that.
Yeah.
But he looked different. I'm trying to find out a weight for him. It was listed as 245 in this match. I don't know. I'm assuming he goes closer to 275 now, probably.
Right.
But that was certainly one thing. Now, I've not personally heard of Chase Owens, nicknamed the Crown Jewel. I don't think either of us had. And I remember telling you, hey, I'm just starting to Google this thing. He works as part of New Japan. He's part of the Bullet Club. Now, we don't really big fans of New Japan at all. We haven't really got into it yet. We aim to be. But we know the Bullet Club.
Yes.
Because that transcends from several different groups. And we know people who've been in the Bullet Club as well. Go on, tell us some WWE stars who are in the Bullet Club or were in the Bullet Club.
Cody Rhodes.
Cody Rhodes, who still is. Yeah, he's still out there.
Finn Balor.
Finn Balor, definitely, yeah. AJ Styles as well. So there's a few really big names as part of that group. I didn't realize the Bullet Club was so big, actually. There was like several names that were mentioned. But yeah, Chase Owens is still one of those people who was in there. Now, a few other things for people who don't know about New Japan. Owens was actually at a match on WWE. He was part of a tag team match with Ryback.
Oh.
So Feed Me More guy. So yeah, he's got a pretty well established. So it says Owens made his debut for New Japan at the King of Pro Wrestling. And also he successfully defended the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Championship against Bushi. I hope I pronounced that correct. On October 23rd, 2015, he joined the Bullet Club. And the following day, Owens and new stablemate Kenny Omega, who lots of time we haven't really seen his matches yet, but we've heard his name mentioned multiple times, entered the 2015 Super Junior Tag Team Tournament. So yeah, that's kind of impressive. Now, the thing I did like is when those two got in the ring together, can you remember what Owens said?
He requested that he wrestle in silence.
Yeah, his exact quote was, because I wrote it down because I thought it was hilarious. When you see greatness, he wishes to wrestle in complete silence, which, of course, that wasn't going to happen, and immediately got a boo from the crowd. And Eric Royal starts stamping his foot. And of course, that didn't get any shushes either. That just got the crowd more and more involved in the match, which I thought that was pretty good. He also tried shushing the crowd as well. He's like, shh. Of course, that didn't work either. Boo! But I thought he was a really good heel. Do you have anything for this match?
So Eric Royal wins the match, and Chase Owens, he starts talking trash, and then the fans start chanting, "We want silence."
They did. Now, I got the finish in here. There's a knees into the stomach of Eric Royal. He landed on his neck from an innovative move, kicks out. There's a body drop from Eric, couple of moves, and then there's a 1, 2, 3. And he steps over Chase as he walks across the ring to celebrate. So, yeah, Eric won that one. And I think Eric actually won quite a few of his first few matches. He was unbeaten for a while. I don't know eventually when he did lose. But, yeah, "We want silence," chanted by the crowd after Eric left. And Chase has a microphone, and he came on and said, "I'm leaving, and I'm never coming back." And there was big cheers from the crowd. And I don't know if he did come back, actually.
I don't think so.
I do know Eric Royal did go on to face Frankie Picard at Stay Vicious the next match, and I'm not sure who Frankie Picard is, so I guess we'll find out in the coming weeks when we watch the second episode.
And we also figured out what Eric Royal was yelling every time. It was "Say yay."
Oh, yeah. We have issues with some of those microphones. We can't always hear them very well. Some of the sound of the speaker's not very good. But yeah, no, you picked up on that one.
No, but he was yelling it.
He was yelling it. But it was closer to the camera, so you could pick it up better than what we normally pick it up when we're watching. All right, match 5?
It was Brandon Day and Jay Steele versus the Bravado Brothers.
The Bravado, yes. And Brandon Day and Jay Steele. Bravado brothers are Harlem and Lance Bravado, although on this one they call them Lancelot Bravado. And on the back of their jerseys they had the Bravado brand wagon, and it had the BR listed in actually what's chemical symbols. And you recognise the music for this one as well, because you was hoping it was Crazy Frog, whereas...
Axel F.
It was Axel F, yeah. Now, actually, these guys, also, the Bravado brothers have got a better history than you realise. I didn't tell you about this either. They actually appeared in some... Debut on the main roster featured teams including, so this is who they faced against, Chris Hero and Claudio Castagnoli. Now, at least one of those you should recognise, even though you're shaking your head, because we actually had a competition recently about what was their real name, and Claudio Castagnoli was one of those. So, who was Claudio Castagnoli? I didn't remember why, and then when I looked it up, I was like, oh, of course. We actually commented it on our very last episode, MGB Wrestling Podcast 005. He was on NXT. I commented about how impressed I was with his athleticism. For a big guy. Cassius Ohno, yeah, exactly. So they fought some serious people there. If you look at Cassius Ohno now and Cesaro, that's a pretty big match. People who they were facing. So that's who they fought on their debut. They've also fought against a team like the Young Bucks as well. Obviously, probably before they're a lot more famous than what they are right now. And they also won a tag team championship by disqualification against a team with Shelton Benjamin on the other side.
Oh.
They also appeared in TNA in 2016. So they have quite a good pedigree, actually. This was actually the longest match. This was the one they appeared in. I have absolutely nothing for this match. Probably because I was researching all this, and I was like, whoa, they fought against those guys? So I'm hoping you're going to bail me out like you normally do, Mason, with some insight for this match.
There's absolutely nothing the Bravado brothers before the bell rang.
Yeah, classic heel moment. And Brandon Day we will see again in the next event against Bobby Shields, who we talked about in match 3. So, actually, I did have some more. I apologise, I did have some more written down. For some reason I wrote them that slightly out of sequence. So yeah, I had that they attacked them before the bell. Later in the match, Harlem tagged in and as well was in control against both Brandon Day and Jason. But the partner broke it up, or else there would have been a 3 count. Brandon Day takes over. He kicked his own partner accidentally. He rolls him up in confusion, gets a 2 count. Jay Steele also with a 2 count, but Lance comes up this time and breaks it up, or Lancelot. There's a slugging contest between Jay and Lance. The Bravados work together, and there's no breakup this time as the spare man blocks, and that would be the end of the match. So the Bravados would go on to face Bro Crockett, like I said, from match 3, and Innocent Isaiah, who features in the next match. So they actually tag those up together, Crockett and Isaiah. Alright, match 6 then. Just been to see Ripper to Shreds, where it was an all-women card, and actually on this one, very few women. This was actually, there's only one woman in the whole of these, all of these matches together. So,
yeah.
Do you want to talk about match 6?
Was Casey
Carlisle.
Oh, Carlisle.
It's in their place name in England, that's how I don't recognise
In the Open Challenge.
And who did she pick in who came out for this Open Challenge? And she was also in the National Wrestling Alliance, the NWA, and she has held the NWA World Women's Championship. Now, on Twitter, he's actually listed as, he says he's a clean wrestling and a dirty dancer. He was definitely thrusting himself forward, shall we say, rather than trying to do a normal wrestling move. As always happens in wrestling, it backfired against him in the end.
So, I also got Isaiah at the start was asking Casey Carlisle to check if he was a woman.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that. I think that's fairly reasonable. I don't think we need to check on that one.
I know, but he's saying that he's a girl.
Oh, he was claiming that. Now, we do have intergender matches on Nova Pro,
yes.
So I don't think it's that big of a deal. I know they don't have that in WWE or anything, but certainly it's pretty commonplace at Nova Pro, and probably on the indie scene in general, so probably not such a big deal for this one. Now, we did notice Innocent Isaiah because he was actually our very first Nova Pro event that we went to. And he actually got seriously injured on that one. I remember they had to, I think the stretchers came out for that one.
Yes, they did.
And we were like worried because we didn't know. This was our first one we've been to. We're like, is he really injured? Or is it just acting? Or is it... And I was like, I think he's injured. Yes. It really looked bad. It looked way too many times. And we reached out on Twitter as well, and we actually asked him, because you were saying, is he okay? I'm like, I don't know. I couldn't find anything on his feed, so we sent a message and tagged him in it. And he did say, no, he's still not good. His head injury, I said, you're not supposed to be bounced off chairs a couple of times. So this is, let's go, we were September, I think, 2017.
Yes. If he wasn't injured,
Mm-hmm.
Brian is such a good actor. He was looking so worried.
Yeah, that was the thing. We're like, whoa, is he selling this, or is he genuine? But yeah, they did look like it wasn't a good thing. So anyway, he did say he's going to be at the April event, so hopefully we're going to go say hi. We'll try and see if we can get a picture with us and Isaiah, and yeah, hopefully he can recover. While we're recording this is only a week after Daniel Bryan's just returned to WWE as well, so I think that's a similar type of injury.
Yes.
And it took him over 2 years to recover from. So we certainly hope Innocent Isaiah recovers quicker than that, and we'll hope to see him back in the ring again. An entertaining match, actually. It was fairly short, but it had a different theme to it. But I thought it was a good one. I enjoyed that one.
And I don't think you mentioned this, but Casey Carlisle, she won by a low blow.
Oh, I think and I didn't write that part down. Oh, yeah, I did put low blow, and I forgot to mention it. Yeah, because the ref was actually talking to Innocent Isaiah at that time. So, but serves him right. He was playing that character the whole time, and he eventually came unstuck. Versus Chucky Wynn, and it said Sidney Porter. Now, I actually misread it to begin with. I thought it said Sidney Poitier on the caption. Now, I don't think you know who Sidney Poitier is, right? So I wrote it down just to check exactly. He was the first African-American actor to win an Academy Award. So he's a very famous actor. All the way back in 1964, though. So not surprisingly you hadn't heard him. But no, it wasn't Sidney Poitier. It was the reason MIA came in. Is like, I see what kind of party this is going to be. And then he knocked some people out of the way. Get out of my way. So you can tell who the heel characters were straight away.
Oh, yeah. He's like trying to get a kid to high five, and then he just pulls him away.
Yep. Now, I tried Googling MIA, and actually I got MIA as in Mia, so I got Mia Yim. So I did get a Nova Pro theme, but I certainly didn't get what I was trying to. So now, by far the smallest person in there, tries to go for a strength contest with, I believe it was the Reason. Chucky Wynn, do you want to punch him? MIA does, but the Reason interferes, even though that's not legal.
Chucky Wynn and Sidney Porter wins the match.
And every time I still think of Sidney Poitier. It's absolutely ridiculous. Alright, that was match 7. And then we sort of had a promo. There was supposed to be 2 more matches. So you asked me what the matches are. Match 9 was supposed to be Ethan Case versus Sanjay Dutt for the PWI Ultra J title, as far as I could tell. And anyway, so the promo came out. Do you have the guy on the microphone who was talking? Was it Brandon?
I don't know.
I think it's Brandon Stutz, or it's something very close to that.
Yeah, it was Stutz.
Yeah, it's something close to that. He came out as talking on Ethan Case's behalf, and Ethan Case was not cleared to fight. He had 3 bruised ribs from John Schuyler. Last night at 2 a.m., Ethan Case talked about the fact that he'd left and driven 15 hours from Atlanta to fight Sanjay Dutt. Severe Virginia checks on things like that, but yeah, he wasn't allowed to fight. So instead what they did is they set up a future chance at the PWI Ultra J title, but that left Sanjay Dutt without a partner to fight at the last minute, and it was already then, instead of having 2 more matches, was Sanjay Dutt versus Logan Easton Lareau and Tim Donst. So do you want to talk about the order they walked in and things you noticed?
And why can't you wrestle with 3 bruised ribs? And you can wrestle in the Olympics with a broken neck.
And I'm assuming you're talking about Kurt Angle right now. And I don't know the history of that. I don't know if that happened in the final, which might be the thing. I honestly don't know for that one. But yeah, it's certainly interesting. But I guess it depends on the severity of it. I don't know how they check the severity of all that stuff. But yeah, driving 15 hours. Anyway. They did ask for a prediction as well. They did ask him, who do you predict's going to win this one? And he said Sanjay Dutt. He said he was a big fan of Sanjay Dutt growing up. And I would agree as well. Sanjay Dutt's the big name. And Sanjay was at our first meeting that we went to as well. And as we were walking around the tables, it was like, oh my gosh, that's Sanjay Dutt. And we walked past. And I pretended I didn't notice him. And I said, you saw who that was, right? And you knew who it was. I was in awe at that point because I'd not met any wrestlers before. We hadn't talked to any of them. And he was such a big name because we had been watching Impact for probably about 2 months at that point.
Yeah.
And we knew he'd had a title at some point as well. And I think he was fighting
Trevor Lee. And Trevor Lee kept stealing his title.
Correct. Anyway, we did go back. He's a really nice guy.
Yes.
We bought a T-shirt from him. He talked about the fact he has a daughter around your age
Yeah,
as well.
and his daughter, he gets a big T-shirt of Sanjay Dutt, and she cuts it so it actually fits her.
And then the shirt that you got's probably too big for you, but
Yes,
he made
it's-
it work anyway, so that was fine.
I just
So
sleep in it, so I don't care if it looks like a dress.
yeah. So Sanjay Dutt was definitely the big star, and it wasn't surprised that he was expected to win this one. So, do you want to talk about the order they came in?
So Tim Donst comes in first, not as safe, but definitely not least, Sanjay Dutt.
Sanjay Dutt. And actually, Tim Donst came in with a black shirt, one he has now, because you actually have a Tim Donst shirt as
Yes,
well.
karma isn't real.
Karma isn't real. Big Tim Donst fans. And he's actually still your profile picture on the MGB Wrestling podcast on the Twitter feed when you actually were dressed up as him and he came over to you. So
And
we're definitely big fans of
I'm
him.
guessing he got it from Kevin Owens because it's Fight Owens Fight.
Oh, could be. That's interesting. Yeah, I've not even thought about that at all. When Logan came in, he's got his sweater around his neck again. It was a classic Logan. He was the one thing that hadn't changed at all. A lot of the things that we saw were like very different, and you could see how things had changed in the last 3 years.
Yeah, except he wasn't doing the 1%.
He wasn't doing the 1% at that time, but his look was exactly the same.
Yes.
And in fact, as soon as he walked in, he's like, "Give me a mic." And the crowd starts booing. And he goes, "Shut up!" And I couldn't hear the last part after that. And he said the announcer screwed up my entrance. So he said, "I want to introduce himself as." I can't remember the exact thing, but it's like from a gated community inside a gated community inside another gated community. So he was talking about the gated community thing, which he still does. But yeah, the 1% certainly wasn't part of it at that time.
There was no gated community then, was there?
That's more of a concept of where he's from, rather than the fan section, which is called the gated community as well. But yeah, like you said earlier, there was no fan section called the gated community, which was definitely interesting. So he didn't have the support that he normally has. And not surprisingly, biggest cheers for when Sanjay Dutt came out. Most amount of streamers I've ever seen as well.
Yes.
My goodness, there was a
Took them, like-
few. At one point because it was taking so long. But yeah, there was a few streamers thrown in the early matches, but nothing close to that one. And I can't think of a match that we've been to where the crowds are getting really big now and often sold out with that many streamers. They did go with his Impact intro, though. They talked about the fact that he's from the Himalayas, even though they'd introduced him as being from Virginia. So I thought that was kind of strange as well. He's definitely from this area, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of the match because he had a speech to make. So Ethan Case was on commentary, like we said. Logan was supposed to face Tim Donst, but now these guys actually have a chance at a title shot. Or
Yeah.
did they? I thought it was pretty obvious Sanjay was going to win that.
Yes, it was pretty obvious.
And you can sort of see that as the people didn't get to see it this time, that'll be the perfect match for the ring. So it's Sanjay and Logan for a long time. There's an octopus stretch by Sanjay Dutt. You can see he's the class of those three.
Yeah.
And as much as we love the other two, but he's just his maneuverability. He has those years of experience as well. He's been wrestling for I think 15 plus years at this point.
Years.
Yeah, except for that. Well, yeah, the one injury that he picked up in was it
November?
December? Yeah, it was either November or December. I think it was when he picked up that injury.
I
But
think
yeah,
it was 7th Dimension or something.
yeah, I think it was 11th Dimension. It was November because we weren't actually at the one in December. We just watched it on TV. So yeah, we were there. It was something pretty innocuous. I don't think it was anything like you think, oh, that was
Twisted
dangerous.
ankles?
Yeah, I think it was just one of those. Kick by Sanjay Dutt keeps Logan outside. Then there's a neck breaker by Donst, and he gets out of that, gets Sanjay for the 2 count. This is when we finally hear, and I didn't write this down at any other point, so this is awesome.
Yes.
I think that was the first time we actually heard it during the whole match, because you hear it in other matches that we've been to recently.
Yes.
And there's some really good matches at Nova Pro now. You hear it quite frequently. But this was the first time on this one. Sanjay was being attended to by the ref for his injury. Low blow from Logan up to his normal cheating methods on Tim Donst. And then Logan gets some sort of powder out. We couldn't see what it was. Obviously intended for Sanjay Dutt, except Dutt counters, tornado DDT, and then Sanjay pins Logan for the 1, 2, 3.
I thought he kicked him, and then he kicked
He kicked him, and then
so
he
the powder gets in his in
Correct.
Logan's face.
and then delivered the tornado
Yes.
DDT. At the end, Sanjay asked for the mic, so that's pretty standard as well. The first one we went to, he talked about the fact that he's from this area. He now says he's from down the street. I think he said Lake Braddock High School, and we actually drove in that area 2 days. Donst wouldn't be back actually until the 4th event, which was against Brandon Day. So not quite sure why he wasn't there, and I guess we'll never know. So I guess that concludes episode Z1 or Z1 if you prefer. Any final thoughts that you want to add for this one?
It wasn't a golden Nova Pro event like most of them are.
Mhm.
I think it was just trying to kick things off to lead to future events and make Nova Pro known.
Yeah, absolutely. For a first event, it's there's got to be a lot of things that are very difficult. It's probably got to be difficult to get talent coming as well because you've got nothing to build it on. Whereas now, I'm sure it's easy. Everybody knows Nova Pro. They've seen it on Powerbomb. It had the highest Powerbomb viewing figures for the one in December at the time. It actually got broken a couple of days later by Beyond Wrestling, I think. But certainly people know who Nova Pro is now. But yeah, I thought it was interesting, like we said, the differences between then and now, and I'm sure we'll continue with those.